Basically going back live. Ben had supposed to do this video. This the Big U video. Basically, we talking. It's Law and Crime. Y'all go subscribe, check them out. Law and Crime channel, and they basically giving us the updates on the whole Big U thing. So.
I just need y'all prayers. I need y'all. I don't even know what to say.
Remember Big U? He turned himself into federal custody last month after a shocking indictment alleged he committed a number of crimes, from embezzlement to fraud to extortion to robbery, as well as violating the Federal RICO Act. But that's not all. His indictment comes as such a shock because to the public, he appeared like an OG who just wanted to do good. But according to the feds, that was all a ploy. I'm Elizabeth Milner with Law and Crime. Now,
I said that was all a ploy. It was a ploy. It was a ploy, my boy.
Big U was convicted on his charges. He's not facing light time. He's facing life in prison. Now, last time I reported on this story, we had little info about the man he's accused of murdering, beyond that he was an aspiring rap
Kid, don't throw your life away.
artist signed to his label. Now we've learned the victim we previously knew as RW actually used to play football with Big U's son.
I just want y'all to know, all this stuff is quiet, man. Shit was all bullcrap.
Not guilty. That's the plea Big U entered last week when he was arraigned on his charges. But Big U is looking at a major uphill battle, and the battle of the federal trial could soon begin as early as next month. According to his federal indictment, Big U ran a criminal enterprise that they call the Big U Enterprise. Court documents say the Big U Enterprise is a mafia-like organization that utilizes Henley's stature and long-standing association with the Rolling 60s and other street gangs to intimidate businesses and individuals in Los Angeles. Federal prosecutors claim Big U is known and regarded as a leader within the Rolling 60s Crips, and his time with the gang dates all the way back to the 80s, where he rose up the ranks after earning his rep as an enforcer. So what do the feds have on him? According to the indictment, agents have confidential human sources, wiretaps, search warrants for social media, iCloud, Google accounts, financial records from individuals and companies or organizations, toll records showing communications between conspirators, victims, and Big U Enterprise members.
Damn, that's a lot of shit, bro. That's a lot of shit, my dude. Man.
Associates, cell phone records, records from the city of Los Angeles, interviews from witnesses and victims. Now, essentially, they claim to have a lot on him, especially since the investigation launched in 2021. But here's what else we've learned since the last reporting of this story. So in addition to embezzlement, wire fraud, and all that, Big U was accused of murdering one of his rap artists in a Vegas desert in January of 2021. Now, previously, we only knew the victim as RW because that's what the indictment says. But now we know the victim's name, Rayshawn Williams.
So they say Big U allegedly pow this young man in the head and throw him in the desert. Like, that's rough. That's sad work. I was just chilling.
Prior to him being a rapper, he was a football player for Crenshaw High. The team even posting a remembrance to him on their Instagram page, writing in part, quote, "He was a very special guy to all of us here at Crenshaw. We hope that you pray and continue to pray for the family and hope that everything goes well along with them." But it's how Rayshawn died that's horrifying. Now, according to the indictment, Big U allegedly murdered Rayshawn by shooting him multiple times, then dragging his body into the desert and left him there in a ditch not far from Interstate 15.
Damn, Big U. We thought you was a stand-up citizen, bruh. Lord have mercy, Jesus. Damn, Big U.
A witness told investigators Big U was one of the last people seen with Rayshawn before his murder. But why would he kill his own artist? Well, allegedly, Rayshawn recorded a diss track about Big U, even seemingly foreshadowing his own death. Now, the indictment says, quote, RW was dissing Henley, referring to Henley as the bro that makes some money, and that RW may get shot in the face for thinking his lackadaisical use of the studio and general representation of unique music is funny. Now, just 5 days later, after laying that track down, Rayshawn was shot in the face with a revolver that left no shell casings. But it's unclear if Big U heard the lyrics prior to the murder. But according to the internet gossip and rumors that are swirling around, Others have suggested other reasons for why Rayshawn was murdered, like Whack 100 alleging Rayshawn and Big U's son were in a relationship and Big...
I don't see it. That's crazy. That's crazy, y'all. They trying to dirty the man's name up. And the man playing the NFL, so that look bad for him. You know, that look real bad for him.
You didn't like that. Now, nowhere in the indictment does it claim that that happened. But Whack 100 and Big U hate each other, so who knows? It might be Whack trying to get another jab in. But in addition to murder, federal prosecutors allege Big U's enterprise purported control of LA, to the point Big U allegedly required musicians, athletes, and others who wanted to do business in LA, both legitimate and even of the criminal kind, to check in. Now, if you're unfamiliar with checking in, it's pretty much you had to get permission from Big U to travel to LA if you wanted protection. Ironic enough, his podcast is called Checkin' In. He even made note of how to do it in the theme song. When you hop off a plane, check in. Penthouse suite, check in. When your feet hit the street, check in. Because if not, gets hot. You better check in. And checking in isn't just sending a text message to Big U saying, hey, I'm in Los Angeles. You gotta pay him. And he's gotta sign off on it if you want to conduct certain activities. Now, Big U has pretty much been a guest on every hip hop and rap podcast you can imagine. And the feds were watching. Now, they cited in the Hip Hop Uncovered documentary that Big U stated, if you don't pick up the phone, that can mean death for somebody. And the Nothing to Something podcast, he said, you're going to check in. You could choose not to, and it's going to be a problem. If you choose not to check in, you suffer the consequences.
So that brings us to Quando Rondo. He went there, and I guess he might have didn't check in. He might have checked in, and something still happened to his people. Little Power. So, yeah.
Now, an example they used of the so-called consequences was the attempted murder for hire plot of rapper Quando Rondo, which was allegedly set in motion by rapper Lil Durk. Now, during that shooting, Quando Rondo wasn't killed, but his cousin was gunned down. Then there's the whole defrauding companies, donors, athletes, and celebrities part. Big U is accused of pocketing more than $100,000 in donations to Developing Options, his nonprofit charity. He even received donations from the likes of Draymond Green and Shaq. Now, according to the LA Times, in August of 2019, NBA star Draymond Green donated $20,000 to the nonprofit. Shaq donated the same amount, but the money went into Big U's personal account. So that's a lot, right? And that's just the cliff notes, pretty much. Now, I just want to point out here, obviously...
So they're basically saying he was taking the money and doing other stuff with it that's supposed to be for the nonprofit organization. But I'm saying, if you run a nonprofit organization, you're supposed to use the money, but it's like percentages, a certain percentage that you have to, run it and pay for your lifestyle or whatever, and then you got the part that you have to give away. But some people, they just take the money and keep all of it and just throw it in their bank account. Like, fuck it.
Feds are accusing Big U of violating RICO, so they allege he didn't do it alone. There were several others also picked up, and by picked up, I mean arrested as a part of the alleged criminal enterprise. Now, as for Big U, he claims that he's innocent. On the way to turn himself in, this is what he had to say.
I'm looking at this video as I come in to turn myself in, and I'm disheartened that they trying to say that I stole something from Developing Option, or I used Developing Option for some front. Developing Option paid my bills. They paid my house note. They paid the bills for my family, the money I made.
He shouldn't have said all that though. Like, he shouldn't have said what it was used for. Like, if anything, he should have said it was being, used for the youth.
As employee for Developing Option, I never mixed that with nothing. I didn't nibble.
And he said he never mixed that with nothing. So how do we know that? Like, but I'm just saying, don't find out in court. They're gonna figure out something, cause they got track record. These folk get up and go to sleep doing this shit. The government to get your ass.
Ain't nobody out to steal nothing. We did PPP loans. We did 2 loans, and that's it. Just like everybody else did. I didn't use no fraud. I didn't use no fake names. And one of them we was paying back, and one they forgave. You know what I mean? And the other one we attempted for, and they didn't give us nothing for it. I filed my taxes, and them coming around telling me I was using Developing Option as a cover for what? None of that's gonna be true. None of that's gonna be true. The government putting this big picture, they're gonna arrest 21 dudes, some dudes I don't even talk to. I don't even know nothing about. So how the hell you gonna lump me in with all them?
How in the hell you gonna lump me in with all them? You gonna lump me? How the hell you gonna lump me there? That nigga said lump me up in with all them.
But it's all a big picture though. It's all a big picture. Now I'm gonna be sitting in here, it's gonna be years on my life.
Damn.
Then you going to get dudes who I don't even talk to.
Years
What
on
they
my
gonna say?
life.
You ruining people's lives. I heard it's over 21 people that's been arrested. This shit wrong. It is what it is. Church, just pray for me. Pray for me, pray for my family. Look at what we did. You look at what I did. I've been on 21 years. It ain't over though. That's what it's not. Blessings. I'm looking at all these charges on the news. I'm headed back to LA. And then I'm looking at the people they arrested. How you gonna go arrest people that I don't even talk to? That's a built-in liar right there. You know what I mean? So, is that how they gonna work the case? Everybody know I'm f***ing. Everybody know I'm f***ing. So, if you want to arrest certain dudes, and put them next to me, there was the dudes you gonna have that call themselves turning against me. Well, ain't no turn against me. I ain't going for that. You might as well go get 600 away.
You say you might well go get 600 away.
They've been saying I did all years. So what they're doing is they go on the internet and these dudes say that I did something on the internet. Then when you say I did on the internet, they go investigate it. Now you raid my houses, raid my shops, raid all this stuff. They talking about I'm committing crimes and covering up with developing option. What crimes am I committing to cover up with developing option? You know what I'm saying? I ain't committed no crimes. They cover nothing up with developing option. But this how they get you. They get one or two people to say something. Ain't gonna be no real evidence. Ain't gonna be no real nothing. It's gonna be a repeated thug. It's gonna be a bunch of people in jail for a bunch of different crimes.
He said it's gonna be a repeated thug. You talking about young thug? You know, y'all. I'm up here in Atlanta and shit. But yeah, you talking about thug and shit.
That don't have nothing to do with me. They finna lock all of us up and says all of them are 60s. Watch this. You just seen it with Thug. I'm finna experience the same thing out here. I knew it was coming. Now they on there saying all this stuff to assassinate my character. All right, man, just pray for me. And again, they can do any one of us. It ain't nobody safe with these dudes. If these dudes feel like want you, how they going around talking about somebody's gonna raid my house before my house get raided? How they there with the police? And y'all sitting there following them. Everybody's a part of them shows and 100 shows and all them shows. And y'all need to, everybody who following them, promoting them.
This is crazy.
Exactly. Y'all wrong. Y'all ain't black. And y'all sure ain't foreign people.
Bruh say y'all ain't black.
They can put charges against anybody. So this is gonna probably be my last video. I'm gonna go turn myself in to see what's going on. They talking about I'm a fugitive. So they just raided all my houses. 600 was actually with the police when they raided my house. And he's actually got video.
He said 600 with the police when they pulled up to the man house. He was with them folks.
On footage of it, so y'all know what y'all dealing with. And I just want to say this to y'all: when they whack, loose, and this internet stuff, all of y'all fought. all y'all who be sending shit around the internet, all y'all who be promoting and listening to what these niggas saying, all y'all giving these likes and hidden likes, all y'all supporting this. All y'all guilty of this. If you had something against a black man, you should handle it with a black. Wax said 100 times he was gonna take my contracts. He working with the FBI. The FBI went to the city 3 days in a row and told the city they didn't want nobody to give me no more money. They went to all the different celebrities and told all the different celebrities, don't give me no money, don't help me, don't do nothing for me. They going around scaring and intimidating everybody. But y'all sitting it around getting people in trouble. Like y'all don't understand what the FBI do to black men who try to help their community. I ain't been nothing but a help to our community. But I guess it is what it is. This the price of being black and trying to help somebody, trying to help your community and do what you can. You're just guilty because somebody else don't like you and they go on the internet and do what they want to. Y'all gonna promote it. It's crazy.
That's a crazy narrative, though.
But I'm going to go turn my...
You painted that narrative, but that was a crazy one right there, bro. Niggas just can get on the internet and say some shit about you, your ass going to jail.
myself 10 though. Cause I ain't did nothing. The fact is, man, they done went to my house, kicked my houses in, bust my window. They calling my son at his football practice, threatening him. You know what I mean? These dudes tagging him. What kind of is this? But you're with these dudes. Now that's the last thing to say. Wax said he's gonna destroy developing option, right? So who gonna replace developing option? Which one of you 60s gonna call yourself coming in? Because wherever it try to come in, y'all the ones that's working with Wax. Believe that. So remove me to get me out the way for somebody else to come in who gonna cooperate. That's what the play is. That's what the whole play is. I'm out. I'm gonna send y'all videos to put up all of them until they lock me up.
And we'll see how this plays out, as new reports suggest he could face trial as early as
It's crazy. They said next month, I think.
next month. Let's bring on trial attorney Adante Pointer to get his take
Fair use. Hey, this Law and Crime video, y'all check out Law and Crime.
on what Big U's trial could look like. Adante, thank you so much for joining me today. Now, before we get into the trial aspect of everything, what's actually your reaction to Big U's 100
indictment that has ensnared not only Big U, but it implicates a lot of different people, because the government essentially laid out their case to say not a single individual, although he was the head or the mastermind, if you leave it to what the government has put together, of this criminal enterprise. And in order for it to be an enterprise, there are other people involved. And so this is a net that is ensnared more than just Big U, but it's also implications for a lot of other people on a list of crimes. And, this is something that was pretty shocking to read. It almost read as if it was a fiction novel. But from the government's position, this is fact, not fiction.
Oh yeah, and it does feel like it's a movie script just kind of playing out. And it's interesting too, because the persona Big U kind of portrayed was that of a former OG that's now a community activist. He wants to do good for the community. And while we can say two things can be true at once, right? Like maybe he was doing good for the community, but if you believe what the federal authorities are, especially in this indictment, he was running pretty much essentially a mafia-like enterprise. They even said that in the indictment. What's your reaction to kind of what feels like a double life he was living?
Well, you mentioned that two things can be right. And so he could have also been engaged in things that were positive, if you will, for the community in terms of helping a community that's very disadvantaged and hasn't received the same economic opportunity. Nevertheless, you have to counterbalance that with these allegations right now that show that he was involved in not just trafficking and extorting people, but also they said that he personally committed a murder. So, those are very stark contrasts and contradictions of a person. And I'm sure the community knows him one way or maybe both ways. That's what's going to be pretty riveting, is to see if this case makes it to trial and or more information that comes out as relates to where the government got their information from, we may see two contradictions of a man on full display. Or we may see that this is really the monster as he's been portrayed, or as Big U has tried to portray himself.
What are your thoughts on declaring his innocence now before federal authorities? Initially, people thought he was going to make a run for it, but he turned himself in. We know that, and he's been in custody for weeks at this point. But in terms of just what federal authorities have on him, but Big U's kind of declaring that, to your point, this is overreach. What's your reaction to that?
Well, when you're up against a federal indictment, and one of the cornerstones and the bedrocks of our democracy is innocent until proven guilty, I think that he played it the way that you could, which is he's saying, hey, I didn't do all of these things that you're claiming. I'm not this monster that you're portraying me to be. And I'm looking forward essentially to defending myself against these allegations. That in and of itself doesn't necessarily mean that I didn't do anything that was alleged, or that I wasn't some part or piece of the entire mosaic or picture that they're painting. He's just simply saying, look, I didn't do all that you said I did. This isn't the way it went down.
I think he got a good take on it.
And I look forward to saying my piece, and you're targeting me. And that same allegation rings very similar to what we had with our current president, who was the target, if you will, of federal activity in the Oval Office.
Yeah, that is very correct. As far
And he said Donald Trump was going through the same thing, but he ended up in the White House.
as the allegation.
Hey, where y'all think Big U gonna lead up? Where he gonna go to?
And Big U's indictment when it comes to wire fraud allegations, embezzlement, making fraudulent applications for COVID-19 relief loans, and then you have that on top of some of the more kind of heinous allegations too, that being murder, allegations of robbery, kidnapping, all of that sort. Why do you think that they're all kind of stacked together in this massive indictment, as opposed to, for example, the murder happened back in 2021? Why do you think that wasn't taken up as a separate matter, and then possibly the financial stuff taken up in another matter? Why do you think it's all together? It's so that way you get a slam dunk and a win, or what are your thoughts on that?
Typically, when you see federal authorities and violations to choose from to come our place, so to speak. And so what you see is they pile on, is the term that the defense attorneys use. They say you piled on all these charges in order to make it that much more difficult for my client to fight for his freedom, and or if we were to go to trial, you paint such a negative picture by claiming all these different things. A jury is more, and we might not agree on the most severe crime, but we can make a compromise verdict in terms of a jury agreeing on a charge or something that has devastating consequences in terms of prison time.
Yeah, because he's facing life in prison, and not even just life in prison, a statutory max sentence of life in prison. What are your
Statutory max sentence of life in prison?
thoughts on whether or not this could be a possibility for him, especially given that, he
Very used.
served time for a completely different separate matter, but in terms of just the punishment that he's facing, it is a lot of time, but what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, federal charges and convictions come with heavy penalties. That's why the weight of the federal government, when it's leaning on you as the criminal defendant, or if you're the people who have prior convictions, you have the risk of being declared a criminal, which in and of itself invokes a mandatory minimum of decades of time. And that's how the federal system works. It's a point system as it relates for how a punishment could be.
I'm gonna tell you that they had to go up to Craig, had to fight him at the end with Debo. That was supposed to be right here, Big U.
Out. So when he has all these different variety of crimes, you add that to his convictions, and you're looking at a staggering amount of time as it relates to prison exposure. And that's why many people plead, because you're up against a very difficult decision. Do I risk what might be hundreds of years in prison, or do I take 10, 15, 20 years, which is still an amazing amount of time, but you still have an opportunity to come home and
Yeah, Big
surprised that given this overwhelming amount of evidence, it seems like from federal prosecutors and from authorities, that I was a little surprised that Big U he maintains his innocence in all of this. But as in terms of him not going through with
hold on, y'all, hold on.
Trial, what do you think could look
Amount of time to governments and then mount his own defense. We'll have to make the decision. Am I going to try to make a deal or accept an offer, or will I have to go to trial? Those are going to be heavy concerns and considerations for him to think through, because as we discussed, he's looking at an infinite amount of time, and the federal government will give you that time. There's no question. It's a big decision, and I think primarily it'll weigh upon the witnesses and cooperating. But that's actually a very common tactic of the federal government. Is when you're facing a federal prosecution, oftentimes they already have the witnesses against you in the bag, so to speak, and they're cooperating, and they have sentences, and they have statements and interviews and recorded evidence. So oftentimes when you see a federal indictment, the federal government has already done the research, they've already done their homework, but that doesn't mean people do not beat these charges. That certainly can happen. So it's to be determined, as they say.
And as far as the murder allegation, he's accused of murdering a rapper that was signed to his label. And the feds pretty much allege that he did this because this rapper, who we now know to be Rashawn Williams, recorded a diss track about Big U. Now, it's unclear whether or not Big U actually heard these lyrics prior to the shooting. But in terms of the murder allegation, what are your thoughts on this, especially given kind of the close nature you allegedly have with the victim?
Once again, to read that allegation and to hear that he murdered a rapper that worked for him, that was on his recording label, that he actually was supposed to be looking out for and kind of shepherding through the entertainment industry, shot him allegedly in the face and left him for dead on the side of a highway, all because this rapper made a diss track or disrespected him in a song. Those are very shocking allegations and, heinous if proved true. And, it's something that you'd hate to happen to anyone. But over something as petty as is something.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Something that's just unimaginable to think about the depravity of a person to do such a thing. So it's definitely a jaw-dropping headline. The question is it true? And what is the evidence to back it up? And so that remains to be seen.
Yeah, and in terms of even just that, we also have this kind of other aspect to the entire case, and that's Big U's kind of way of raining this power down on LA, and that's in the form of checking in. Something that really federal authorities kind of laid out how Big U kind of operates that in terms of just even having professional athletes, musicians, other people who wanted to come down to LA pretty much make a form of payment to make sure that they were protected essentially by Big U, so that way consequences wouldn't happen. And the feds even kind of point out what the consequences are, that being the shooting or the attempted murder of rapper Quando Rondo, and that kind of has to deal with the Lil Durk case. But in terms of just the whole checking in aspect to this case, and just even the power that Big U exuded, because they got the whole check-in thing, and I could just kind of ramble on about this, but they got the whole check-in thing because Big U always talked about it. It seems like there's terms of just leaving the street life, because they sometimes, when you're caught too in deep, it seems like there's no way of getting out, and then this type of thing happens. But in terms of just, the OG is not leaving the street life. We're in 2025 now. A lot of things have changed in terms of, people are more vocal on podcasts or more vocal on social media, just things that they may not realize could be coming off very criminal, but they're still talking about it, not realizing that other people are watching. But in terms of just the street life bleeding into criminal activity that just keeps going and going.
Yeah, this some shit, man.
Yeah,
just be quiet, bro. Don't chill, bro.
Had some convictions.
You can talk, but you don't talk. Don't tell on yourself you gotta go to jail. I am now.
Within his circle, in his.
You can have a planned conversation without
Los Angeles.
going to jail, dog.
People do check in.
You can get on the podcast and turn all the way up, but you ain't gotta make a fool out yourself or tell on yourself.
Tell me the best restaurants. Tell me the best places to hang out. Tell me the places to avoid. That's a certain type of check-in. And those are the type of things that many of us might do if we're going to a place.
But when I went to LA, like my people, my ex-girl, she from Cali. So I had to check in like with her, like just to know, hey, what can I wear, what I can't wear. She told me the truth. She said, no, you can't wear them because like they be looking at that shit like thinking you in a gang or something. So, but yeah, man, when I went to LA, man, I went with Nipsey Hussle passed away. I went to a lot of spots, man. Crenshaw High, bro, like all that, bro.
That we're not familiar with, and we have people who are familiar with that place in our circle. The problem that people run into is when you provide those type of recommendations or services, A, for money, and B, under pain of being robbed or beaten or killed. Okay.
But I would call, like, say if I went to Chicago. I've never been to Chicago. But when if I go to Chicago, I'm calling people to make sure like what I gotta do, what I can't wear, you know what I'm saying? Shit like that. Like I ain't,
And that's called extortion. That's different than merely, checking a Yelp review. All right. And so that's what the federal government is talking about here. I do once again understand and appreciate the idea that these people often are high net individuals. They live a flashy and crime definitely takes place. The police don't appear to be able to maintain that order. And there's something to be said about communities being organized in a way where someone outside of the system who may not be able to, the system in areas that the system may not be able to reach, is able to maintain some sense of order and form about how things are going to take place in these communities. And so that may be the big U play. And if that's the case, the person who is maintaining that order is removed, there is a power struggle at times, and there's a power vacuum, and then people are competing to fill that void. And oftentimes that leads to even more violence than the authorities think that they were trying to stem or quell. Instead, it incites violence and aggressive activity. And so that also remains to be seen.
There have been some reports that have been suggesting that the trial could start as early as next month, which to me sounds just completely insane. But
damn, huh? Diddy's probably gonna be after that.
I think that actually
To trial quickly, because you do not believe that they have all their ducks in a row, and will be able to essentially be organized, be prepared, and ready to bring all the witnesses and the evidence to bear at trial against you. So that's also sometimes a tactic. At the same time, generally speaking, time is in the defendant's favor if they allow time to run out and allow time to, because bad things happen to people, easily found time. And so it's usually to the defendant's benefit time to kind of run out and not ask or push for a quick trial. But trial is scheduled for within a month's time or so does not mean it will go at that time. Oftentimes trials are delayed, they're continued to later dates for reasons on both sides of the aisle. Sometimes the prosecutor needs more time, other times the defense needs more time, or even the court. So I wouldn't bet on trial proceeding in a month or so. However, it could happen at some later point in time if neither the defendant and the prosecutor can agree on something.
I wonder, is it going to be on the moment?
how much of a hurdle do you think the defense?
All right, y'all kicking me on Karma Cafe. I want y'all to like, subscribe, definitely hit the notification. I'll probably be back with another live a little bit. Peace. One.